Hello guys, welcome to Book Review 360, and in this video I'll be talking about a very important topic from CSS point of view, and it is equally essential for current affairs, Pakistan affairs and English essay. And the name of the topic is, of course, why do coup happens in Pakistan. Now throughout this the course of this video, I'll be taking you in the form of a story, and I have highlighted several important terms which you can jot down, uh, so that you can make your notes in a brainstorming way. So note down those points and listen to this story so that it will stick in your mind till end. So watch till end because it will be a very productive session for you. And of course, if you want me to make more of these videos, I'll be making if you post it in the comments box. So let's start. Introduction. Now, warning that a coup is knocking has been favorite mantra for Pakistani politicians over the years. Creating panic in the name of a coup is the best remedy to stay in power, even when a politician's reign is encumbered with feeble governance, corruption, and mismanagement. Now, these are the keywords: feeble governance, corruption, and mismanagement. But portraying themselves as oppressed and stranded because of the permanent threat of coups has been of little use for Pakistan's political parties, historically speaking. In fact, the ever present sense of a possible coup in Pakistan is not only because the coup makers are ever ready, but even more because the politicians themselves provided room for military adventurism. So, three reasons have long been paving the way for military rule in Pakistan over and over again. Okay, so we will be looking at each of the reasons separately. So let's get to it. Number one, political strife. Immediately after its independence in 1947, Pakistan had to cope with countless hiccups. Founding father Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah died only a year after the country was established, which sparked an endless power sharing tussle among the politicians. The newly born state was unable to make a constitution for 9 years, and in these years, Pakistan went through four prime ministers, four governor generals, and one president. With no constitution and no political stability, the country was being governed on an ad hoc basis. Decision making was in limbo, the government machinery was static, and activists of the freedom movement were disappointed with the shaky progress of political affairs. Continuing on with the political strife, point number one, the masses were waiting for a messiah that could put the country on the right track. Now, the word messiah is very important. You can incorporate it anywhere. So, seeing this state of affairs, General Ayub Khan stepped in after being appointed as Chief of Army Staff by President Iskandar Mirza, and Pakistan's first ever coup occurred on October the 7th, 1958. Now, this is a very important date. So, that date marked the time when the country took a sharp tilt towards military adventurism, and history witnessed the military involvement in state affairs well before democracy had taken hold. Consequently, the state endured more coups in 1969, 1977, and 1999. So, only 7 years after the first general elections, then Chief of Army Staff General Zia-ul overthrew the first democratically elected Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's regime in 1977 and imposed Pakistan's longest martial law. Bhutto was unquestionably famous among the masses, but his ouster was not resisted, except by Bhutto's own Pakistan People's Party. Now, instead, a new coalition of opposition parties, instead of opposing the, martial law, a new coalition of opposition parties, famously known as the Pakistan National Alliance or PNA, eased way for a military takeover just before 1977 elections, since the political violence and agitation had, had touched new heights. The year 1988 marked an end to what most call the vicious military rule in Pakistan when Army Chief turned President Zia-ul Haq died in a plane crash. That was also a fateful event in Pakistan's history. After his death, the PPP came back to power and appointed Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's daughter, Benazir Bhutto, as prime minister. However, the enthusiastic return to democracy didn't prove productive as the opposition parties continued orchestrating covert intrigues to topple elected governments. From 1988 to 1999, four governments came and went. This is again a very, very important point, with none of them seeing through a constitutional term. This political tug of war was a nuisance for the state as a whole, and the public suffered the brunt of the calamity. Again, when Nawaz Sharif swept the polls of 1997 and was elected democratically, he was ousted by President Musharraf in 1999. Despite being overthrown in an undemocratic fashion, there was no resistance to Musharraf's coup once again, just like there was no resistance to Zia-ul coup. The disillusioned people did not bother to come into the streets either in favor of democracy or simply against military takeover. So that was the first point, and now we'll be coming to the second point, which is missing political consensus on the economic front. This has also been cited as one of the most important points as to why democracy hasn't taken a hold in Pakistan and why different dictatorships and coups have assailed the democratic uh, frame of Pakistan. So let's move on. Political instability and backstage tussles have also impeded Pakistan's economic activities. Pakistan has a bleak history of commencing mega projects. This problem is also associated directly with political parties, which rarely consensus before initiating big projects. Combined with Pakistan's constant political turnover, mega projects have almost no chance of success whatsoever. For example, take the example of Kalabagh Dam. Uh, the Kalabagh Dam was and still is a necessity for Pakistan since it will heavily contribute to ending the country's energy woes. But the dam has always remained controversial. Parties from Sindh grabbed votes for making it a contentious issue, earning public sympathies through propaganda. Political instability and backstage tussle, of course, have impeded Pakistan's economic activities. About mega project, we have already talked about constant political turnover and lack of consensus on Kalabagh Dam. Now let's move on. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is another mega project, is also witnessing the same political hindrances, just like many other mega projects. Parties from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan are not happy with the planned route and claim that they will receive little benefit from the project, which they call will be detrimental for the federation. Mega projects that have been accomplished in so far, like Mangla Dam, Turbela Dam, and Gwadar Port, were initiated and completed during military regimes. Now, this is a very, very important fact that all the strategic projects were initiated and completed by military regimes. So, this is a very big question mark on account of the politicians and our democratic regimes because they couldn't consensus even on a single mega project. So, agricultural reforms were introduced during the Ayub Khan era, which was also a major reform. Of course, some credit also goes to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, but major reforms. The initiation was taken during Ayub era. An effective police order was a specific focus of Pervez Musharraf. So the third point is lack of accountability. Now, this is also often cited as one of the main reasons why dictatorship and military dictators have stepped in. Transparency and accountability, as you know, are two fundamental columns of good governance. Yet in Pakistan, both are practiced half heartedly or used to tyrannize political opponents. Historically, accountability has been marred by the ruling elite's preferences and ineffective institutions. Our accountability institutions are spineless and impotent, literally. They operate according to the whims of the incumbent government. Additionally, the politicization of the bureaucracy and cronyism have enormously affected the professionalism of civilian institutions, and therefore, civil servants serve political interest instead of the state interests. The deterioration of the civil services is also a reason behind military involvement in Pakistani politics, since people believe that the armed forces are professional and act based on state priorities. Likewise, public opinion tends to place military men ahead of politicians when it comes to advocating for accountability, since the masses believe that military pursues accountability without political interests, which is, of course, a contentious issue, and it is a debatable issue. I mean, sometimes they do pursue accountability, the military, on a political basis, but sometimes there is political victimization. So moving on to the conclusion, of course, you have had the 3 points, and I hope you have jotted down the important terminologies and the points. Let's move to conclusion. In a democracy, these imperfections and deficiencies debilitate the social, political, and economic values and decelerate development. But it doesn't mean that military adventurism is the only solution. Coups have served public expectations to a considerable extent, but didn't enable democratic norms to mature. Rather, instead of enabling, they have created a hostile environment. So, meanwhile, coups cause a lack of military professionalism. Also, I mean, military is involved in civilian affairs, which is not their domain. And coups also trample on human rights because there is also lack of accountability. And coups also encourage one-man show instead of collective wisdom, which is a trademark of a functioning democracy. However, a coup cannot happen unless space is provided, and this is where we lack. The politicians, always provide space to the military dictatorships, the military, in the form of inefficiencies in their governance and corruption and accountability, lack of accountability, and not delivering on their promises. So, Pakistani political parties and politicians have mostly adopted an opportunistic approach. Their strategy has indeed debilitated democratic standards and strengthened the grounds for military invasions. Even after 70 years, hope for deliverance from these issues is missing from the manifestations of political parties. Therefore, the maxim that the coup is somewhere knocking around the corner still holds true. So, it is important to note that. So, I think that's it. That's it for today. That's it for this session. And if you like this video, do let me know in the comments box, and also subscribe to the channel and share with your fellow aspirants so that maximum aspirants can gain advantage. Thank you.